have ascended. I have communed with the dark spirits in the night to be able to gain the ability of the Death Touch, where I can make a YouTube video about a game company and its downfall, and a couple weeks later they're selling off. Man, well, I think some of this news is sudden and maybe even shocking to some people. If we look at the history of Ubisoft over the last couple of years, it all makes sense. The situation at Ubisoft is far more dire than people imagined. And with that, they keep doing the same thing over and over again and somehow believing that it's going to change things, but it's not. Now they're talking about releasing 10 Assassin's Creed games in 5 years because that's going to work. Man. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about how Ubisoft has likely lost more than they're actually worth. And somehow it's our fault. Remember when I talked about in that last video how pushing Assassin's Creed Shadows to a later date was only going to give them more time to ruin their image? Yeah. Whether it's investor calls, internal memos leaking, developers speaking out online, insiders calling for comment, the story behind Ubisoft is rapidly worsening and it's only just begun. Following the tepid reception of Star Wars Outlaws, Ubisoft abandoning their post at Tokyo Game Show, and their announcement delaying Assassin's Creed Shadows, an article from Insider Gaming dropped revealing that Star Wars Outlaws' soft reception mentioned in that internal memo from Ubisoft's CEO was an understatement. Star Wars Outlaws had in fact only sold 1 million copies in the month since its launch. While 1 million copies is a far better performance than, say, Sony's Concord, it isn't all that different when neither game turns a profit. 1 million copies sold can be a triumph for an indie or a AA game, especially when considering the modest budgets those projects often have. However, the scale at which AAA games are developed changes that equation entirely. These games, particularly Ubisoft's latest entries, are produced with far larger budgets, often exceeding $100 million for development alone. Factoring in marketing, which can often rival or even exceed the development costs, and you're looking at games that are costing nearly $200 million or more. I mean, we just saw Sony invest $400 million into Concord. When you invest that much money into a project, selling 1 million copies becomes a catastrophic failure, especially when you're using a coveted IP like Star Wars. Falling short here in sales doesn't just sting, it delivers a crushing blow to Ubisoft's already shaky financial standing. Keep in mind, Star Wars Outlaws likely exceeded the average AAA budget that we've seen used over the years. Using the Star Wars name, the legacy that title holds likely brought a massive influx of investment both from Disney and Ubisoft. While the story is a bit old, Ubisoft spent a lot of money marketing this game, not only in ads, but in sponsored content, and more infamously, sending content creators and reviewers on boat trips and visits to Disney World. It's sad to say, but in the games industry, the more you invest into games development, the more likely they are to invest even more into marketing. Ballooning costs of these games often doubling, tripling, or even quadrupling what it costs to develop. It wouldn't surprise me to hear that Star Wars Outlaws cost $300 million or more. But this is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how much Ubisoft has lost over the past few years. Star Wars Outlaws' underperformance is just the latest in a string of failures that have bled the company dry, starting with the massive disaster that was Skull and Bones, once hailed as the industry's first quadruple A game. They're never going to live that down, by the way. Skull and Bones was supposed to be a revolutionary game, a crown jewel in Ubisoft's catalog. Instead, it's become a sinkhole of wasted development. Having been in development for over a decade, with delays upon delays, the game's budget had ballooned well over $200 million, and that's on the conservative estimate. With some insiders that were claiming that the game had been anywhere between $600 to $850 million invested into it. The game has become a running joke of the industry with no end in sight and no clear path to success. It stands as a testament to the incompetence of modern-day Ubisoft. But it doesn't stop there. Ubisoft also had disappointing returns from Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Despite leveraging nostalgia and a beloved franchise, making a actually unique game, they failed to capture attention in sales. Initial trailers and gameplay footage were met with lukewarm responses, and when the game finally launched, it quickly became apparent that the price of the game didn't match up with consumer expectations when beloved games like Hollow Knight, Dead Cells, Blasphemous, and more are sold for half of the price or even less. Then there's XDefiant, Ubisoft's late bloomer attempt at breaking into the competitive shooter scene, which has been dominated by the likes of Call of Duty, Valorant, Fortnite, and more. From the start, XDefiant was fighting an uphill battle. Players are already invested in other live service games, and this game had a lot of issues on its launch. Not only is it entering into a crowded market, but many critics are pointing out just how out of touch the game felt. What was supposed to be a fast-paced arena shooter with strong connections to the Tom Clancy universe turned into a muddled, buggy, generic, and over-monetized offering, with many of the players quitting after the game's beta and the vast majority of players choosing to ignore it entirely. So now that we have a broader perspective on their recent failures, since the explosive launch of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the only title to turn a profit was Assassin's Creed Mirage, which reportedly captured $250 million in revenue by the end of January 2024. Meaning that with all of Ubisoft's failures over the past few years, if we combine them all together, it is well within reason to assume that a company, as of recording this video, that's worth $2 billion, likely blew more than half of what they're worth today over the past few years. To me, Ubisoft has been irrelevant for over a decade. That's the whole reason why I made the video that I did, because I saw a lot of people that were upset about Star Wars Outlaws, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I was like, I just don't care. And then when I thought that, I was like, I wonder if there's a bunch of people that feel the same way. There you go, the downfall of Ubisoft. That's where the idea came from. Nobody is buying their games. Nobody wants their games. They may want the Tom Clancy, or they may want the Assassin's Creed, but the minute that you see the name that's attached to it, you know to expect the most generic experience possible. There is an intersection between product and art that video games dwell in, and Ubisoft takes the product part of that the most seriously and throws away the video game part of it, or throws away the art part of it. They don't make... They make video games. They don't make profound interactive experiences, interesting characters, or great stories. They make factory-made games that are aimed at the mindless masses. That's what they're perceiving. That's the target audience that they're looking for. They've said so much in some of the comments that they've made. When you spend hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions of dollars, making the bare minimum viable product, meanwhile, your competitors, Tears of the Kingdom, Elden Ring, Ghost of Tsushima, are delivering 5-star cuisine, what do you think is going to happen? I feel like this is all common sense, but that won't stop them from blaming us. In an now-deleted post from LinkedIn, Stevie Chissard, monetization director at Ubisoft, wrote about the recent events and conversations surrounding the company, saying, "I rarely post on social media, but today I'm sad, ashamed and sad. The gaming industry is rough at the moment. We all know it, but seeing how gamers react on social medias, wishing ill fate to companies and people alike, is sad. And not only towards Ubisoft. Even though it's always the vocal minority that express themselves on social media, I was hurt and ashamed to be a part of this community. What is even more revolting is coming to LinkedIn and seeing the same comments from people within the industry. On top of exposing yourself as clearly non-decent human beings, you are affecting thousands of employees that are already impacted by all the hate despite doing their best to deliver incredible experiences. How can you wish a company to fail simply because they do not cater to you, or that the product does not please you, is beyond me. We are all in the same boat. Please, please, please stop spreading hate. We should all uplift each other instead of bringing each other down." I want to make something crystal clear to both developers and onlookers who don't understand why gamers have a growing disdain for the games industry. We aren't gamers. We are customers that year by year have had their wallets, rights as consumers, and favorite hobby trampled by the video game industry's evolution from plucky developers creating unique and valuable experiences into an industry that's driven by investor interests, C-suite executives, veiled propaganda, and rampant commoditization. We went from buying something and owning it to murky digital rights ownership that now has forced California to bring a law notifying customers that they don't actually own the games they purchase. We went from paying a single price for a game or buying an upgraded version that had tangible benefits like merch, figurines, stickers, books, and more. Now we have digital upgrades giving us pre-existing content that's locked behind a fabricated barrier with a made-up price that's pulled out of their ass. Games used to be isolated purchases, but now they're ongoing investments, commoditized further and further each year, where at first it was purely cosmetic, now it's in-game items, weapons, power-ups, level-ups, boosters, and currencies, and more. The games we grew up loving, the games that shaped our taste, the games that carry some of our fondest memories have turned into a shadow of their former self, steeped in greed and narcissism. casting our attention aside and searching for the mythical modern audience, twisting beloved characters to suit modern agendas, censoring games and watering down creativity, lowering the overall quality of their games while asking for higher prices. Developers who claim to appreciate us, journalists who wrote for us, now chastise us for not blindly following them into the dark. Yes, the gamers are mad, and you shouldn't be surprised when they laugh while you're failing as they pull the knife from their back. Remember my interviews with the Ubisoft developers. They claim that the company has an issue with toxic positivity, a company where using exclamation points or even base level criticism is seen as dangerous and offensive. Here we have proof of that toxic positivity. The director of monetization saying they are hurt and ashamed by being a part of the gaming community, saying that they are revolted by fellow developers who share in the criticisms of Ubisoft, claiming them to be non-decent human beings. Stop spreading the hate. We should all uplift each other. You are the last person in the entire video game industry that anyone would want to listen to. Your position as monetization director is one who integrates modern gambling and addiction psychology into video games to extract more value from players than what the games are worth. Your position represents one of the most pervasive evils in gaming. The only uplifting you do is uplifting money from players' wallets. How can players wish for a company to fail? I don't know. Maybe we should ask the Rainbow Six Siege players. A community who lifted a failed game into a worldwide phenomenon that then later evolved into a full-price title plagued with battle passes, loot boxes, cosmetic shops, and more. Every update claiming to add more content instead provided less content and more monetization. It wasn't until just recently that they told players to look forward to a new remastering update, only to find that update came with an optional monthly membership. Chassard's post exposes a staggering disconnect between Ubisoft's leadership and the gaming community, but it also reveals just how out of touch this industry's become. It's rich, to say the least, for a monetization director, someone who plays a key role in implementing the very systems that gamers despise, to express shock and appallment at backlash. It's not just the vocal minority that's tired of being treated like walking wallets, it's the entire customer base that feels this way. It's just that those who speak out are the minority. Gamers don't wish for a company to fail for petty reasons. They see a company like Ubisoft eroding the hobby that they once loved, replacing creativity and passion with greed and exploitation. How do you expect goodwill when every decision that you make is a thinly veiled attempt to nickel and dime the very audience that you claim to be serving? This is a company that holds no respect for their customers, and with that mindset, you are bound to fail. I love that every single time these developers receive any sort of criticism for failed projects or obvious malpractice, they want to appeal to empathy. Your words are affecting the developers that are working hard. They're trying their best to bring you the most incredible experiences. And your job as monetization director stands in direct contrast to that. You're not a creative. Why are you pretending to represent them? If anything, out of anybody, you should understand what's going on more than anybody else. You're on the money side of things, not the creative side, and you should understand that business is cold and unfeeling. This is a transactional relationship. This idea that customers somehow need to care about how hard you work or that you gave it your best. We don't care. You're asking for my money, not for my empathy. This isn't a charity. Players will be there to celebrate when your games succeed because your game succeeding means you brought a product into the market that valued their time and money. They will celebrate when your games fail because they did the opposite of that. They were trash, and we don't want trash. But somehow they think that we need to be the ones to soak it up. We still need to pay for it. We still need to feel bad and try to support them regardless, even though they delivered something that wasn't worth our time or money. This isn't No Man's Sky and Hello Games buckling under the pressure of consumer expectations. This is the used car salesman that rolled back the odometer and knows that that car is going to break down in 100 miles. This company has no footing here whatsoever, and they will get no empathy. Sure, you guys can feel sorry for him if you want. I'm sure there's some people that do. Me? I'm just going to sit back and watch him struggle. Desperation is the perfect word to describe Ubisoft in what feels like their death throes. Not only do we have the monetization director pleading for sympathy, obviously trying to protect their own position or maybe find some future employment, but we're also seeing a steady stream of leaks revealing Ubisoft's increasingly frantic plans. It's clear that the company is scrambling, trying to salvage what's left of its reputation and finances, but every move they make seems more misguided than the last. Take, for example, the latest report from Tom Henderson of Insider Gaming saying that Ubisoft is planning on releasing 10 Assassin's Creed games over the next 5 years. Sure, it's likely to include VR and mobile, but even so, it's as if they've completely misunderstood the meaning of insanity. Their games are underperforming. Their once proud franchises have become stale, and their formulaic design has left players feeling exhausted. Yet the solution to this is to pump out even more of the same games? What is the strategy behind this? Rather than innovating or addressing the core issues that have drove fans away, they've chose to double down on a formula that no longer works. Flooding the market with 10 new Assassin's Creed titles in just 5 years is only going to desensitize customers, diluting what remains of any goodwill that's out there. Then there's Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is delayed until February, a clear sign that this game is not ready for launch. Now we're just hearing that they're planning on putting in a co-op mode late in development. Shadows has 2 protagonists, much like Assassin's Creed Syndicate, so there's likely a co-op mode that was meant to be a part of the experience all along. The fact that they're announcing this now suggests that it's either cut content or a last-ditch effort to salvage the game's image. It's hard to believe that Ubisoft can manage to add meaningful content to the game, properly test it, and get everything polished by in time for February's release. This reeks of poor project management, and the rush to make these kind of changes only raises further concerns about the game's quality. Now, I will say this is one of Ubisoft's smarter moves, at least on paper, and it's bringing Assassin's Creed Mirage and Star Wars Outlaws to Steam. Like many AAA publishers, Ubisoft tried to force its own launcher, Ubisoft Connect, onto PC players, but it's been nothing short of a disaster. Nobody wants to have anything to do with it. From server issues to frequent data breaches, Ubisoft Connect is a running joke. I personally have had my Ubisoft account compromised more than once, far more than I've ever had it on PlayStation or Steam or anywhere else, and I know that there's a lot of other people who have experienced the same. It's baffling that a company that is so obsessed with profit would keep their games off of the largest gaming platform in the world, only to crawl back to Steam after years of failure. Once again, Gabe Newell does nothing and his competitors come crawling back. All roads, it seems, leads to Steam. Finally, there is the looming acquisition by Tencent. Ubisoft and Tencent are reportedly in talks of a full takeover, which would allow Ubisoft's founders, who have been fighting for majority control, to finally exit the company. While I'm generally against market consolidation, whether it's through US or foreign corporations, this move might actually benefit all parties involved. Ubisoft desperately needs a corporate and structural shakeup. Tencent would be getting the company at the lowest value, and the players would at least have the faint hope that Ubisoft games might be good again, instead of knowing they're all just going to be mediocre under the same current management. While I understand a lot of people don't really like Tencent, it's worth noting that the studios they acquire, like Riot Games, Grinding Gear Games, Digital Extremes, have largely retained their identities and have continued to thrive. Tencent steps in when studios aren't making money, and right now that's the exact kind of intervention that Ubisoft needs. Change, in this case, may be the only path forward. In the end, Ubisoft's tale has become a tragic one, marked by a clear disconnect between the company's leadership and the players who once celebrated their games. Their reliance on tired formulas, their over-reliance on monetization schemes, and the company's inability to innovate have left them, unable to maintain relevance in a rapidly evolving industry. What once was a leader in creative, open-world experiences has become a symbol of corporate greed, churning out soulless products that nobody wants. As they continue to fumble their franchises, alienate their audiences, and drown in poor management decisions, it's hard to imagine any future of Ubisoft that doesn't involve massive change, whether that's through acquisition or collapse. When you stop making games people love and start making products designed solely for profit, you can only sell out so long before there's no one left to buy in. 10 Assassin's Creed games in 5 years, dropping co-op into Assassin's Creed Shadows only 4 months before the game's launch. What are you thinking? Our games aren't selling. We need to make more of them. Pump them out. 10 games in 5 years. You're out of your mind. I actually do feel sorry for the Ubisoft developers. It must feel like they're working at a sweatshop right now. It has to be like that yes dear meme that you always see, We're making another Assassin's Creed game. Yes, dear. Why wouldn't you just slow down your content cadence? Look for the issues that you have, listen to player feedback, and then iterate on your design in a way that you can actually bring something of value into the market that is fairly priced. Everything they're doing right now, outside of the acquisition, and even the acquisition is included in that, but it's all just desperation. And as somebody that has been apathetic towards their releases, now I'm sitting here just thinking they're pathetic, and it's gross. Arguably, one of the best pieces of news that's come out of this is the acquisition or potential acquisition by Tencent. I get it. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like Tencent. They have their fingers in just about every single company that's out there, but in most cases, with some of their studios at the very least, they stay out of their business unless they're making money. And that's the problem with Ubisoft. They're not making any money right now. They're losing a lot of money, and they need something. They need a full-on shakeup. And I think if Tencent does acquire them, what we're likely going to see pretty much immediately is a lot of layoffs. A lot of different studios will probably get closed. Their scope will narrow on very specific titles and specific franchises and things like that. And we'll probably, hopefully, see better products come out of it. I don't know. I mean, something's better than nothing here. I mean, it's either, one, the company goes out of business and they just sell off the IPs to be able to make, you know, some mansion money, or Tencent gets them. That's basically the only two choices that they have right now. So, personally, you know, I'd like to see a major shakeup at the company. Do something smart for once, please. Go make or go remake a Splinter Cell game. Or how about this? You know what you did with Rainbow Six Siege, where you remastered the game, added a ton of content after players actually bought into it? Well, you have the Division 2, which still has a relatively thriving player base. It's not massive by any means, but the reason why it's not is because there's nothing else to do in the game. Why don't you guys throw a new coat of paint on that game? Give it a remastering and then add some new content to it. I would guarantee right now, if you just announced out of nowhere that we're going to do a Division 2 expansion, people would lose their minds. It's easy money. I need to run a video game company. They obviously need the help right now. That's all I can say. I thought I was done with talking about Ubisoft for a while. I at least thought they'd give me like a month before they do anything else stupid, but, you know, I guess that's not how this game works. I mean, I'll keep covering it as long as they want to keep putting it out, but yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've been enjoying watching this downfall, that's for sure. I got some other games to get ready to play. I'm debating on whether or not I play Diablo 4. I made all these videos talking about how it's just not worth it, how the expansion's not going to be worth it. Now I'm sitting here going like, I also kind of feel responsible, like I need to, you know, review it and whatnot. I don't know. Yes, dear. Anyway, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends. Follow me on Twitch if you guys want to catch me live, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Family, 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 family.